Hello everyone, Don Wynn with BlueFirePoker.com. Today I'm going to be doing the first part of a fairly lengthy series I plan on doing on moving up the PLO limits from 50 PLO to 400 PLO. I guess I've recently done that within the last year and moved up to 510. So um, hopefully I can share some insights and how I moved up and some of the pitfalls and whatnot. I won't be releasing these videos back to back to back to back because it'll just be way too many PLO videos in a row. So this will just kind of be a project I work on and hopefully be done within 4 months with 2 to 3 videos per limit. I'll go ahead and start the video now. So at 50 PLO, the first thing that matters a ton, I think, is in hand selection. That's going to vary from the later stages. It's going to be a lot more important to play hands that play multi-way. When you start playing higher, like, they are going to respect your raises a little bit more, and you'll play more heads up pots. So non-nut suits are like okay. In at these stakes where, as you'll see throughout this video, people are going to be playing, or hands are going to be played, 3 to 5 to 6 way fairly regularly. When we are playing, we want hands that do make nut suit. So, for example, this is going to be like a decent one, but not like that great. Ace King 6 7 double suited is a good hand, but it would be much better if the like Ace 6 were suited and the King 7 were of clubs. But still fine to go ahead and play with one nut suit. And it does go 4 way. This is something that happens like very regularly. Another thing that I'm going to be doing throughout this particular video and however many videos I do at 50 PLO is stealing just a ton of pots because people are just like, well, people are playing way too many hands for one, and two, they're not playing aggressively post flop and kind of just looking at their hand strength and playing pretty fit or fold. So this is the type of board, even 4-way, that I'd probably take a cheap stab at for maybe half pot if I had air. With my particular hand, it's just an easy bet. Bottom left, hand strong enough to continue here, I think. There is one shorting the pot, and we're kind of disadvantaged stack position or position wise, but I feel it's strong enough hand to continue in position, and great flop for us. The pre-flop 3-better I think is unlikely to have top set. So, I mean, he does have some straights in his range, which we still have about 30-35% equity against. So, pretty happy about that. I went ahead and bet half car stack there. A lot of people when they see bet into that board will just bet whatever amount, but betting half car stack there is going to be pretty good because Hoy Rourke, when he just calls, opens himself to putting 370 in and potentially facing a raise if card jams, which I think will happen fairly regularly on this board. So had card jammed the rest of his stack there, we could have the option to re-raise, so it puts Hoey in a really bad spot. So definitely look for those spots and don't just mindlessly see bet some arbitrary amount. And at this point, not going to bet card stack because the pot's a little bit too big. So just make a normal C bet and hopefully get the money in against both players. Because I think Hoey would probably re-raise with the nut straight. So the only hand I'm really worried about here is the lower straight. But if he has it, then so be it. And we get it in against a hand that has 20% equity and hold. So that's pretty sweet. Easy isolation on the top left. Our hand is, double suited and not super connected with all 4 cards, but 2 separately connected hands. So pretty happy about that. And with top 2 here, just make a C bet probably in the half pot range, and if anyone raises, it's probably a pretty easy fold. I don't, from what I saw at 50, is people aren't going to be raising like Ace King XX with Ace High Diamonds or anything like that. They're probably just going to call with most of their hands and play their range face up. So if someone does raise here, I think I'm looking at Ace Jack a majority of the time. And with just four outs, it's pretty easy fold. Once it gets raised and then three bet on the flop, it's super super easy fold. So it's top set versus Ace Jack. So my King Queen was um, absolutely dead in that spot, except for running queens, I believe. I'm playing a fair amount of hands, and I think they're all pretty reasonable so far. But I think you can play fairly tight at these games because and just value bet and turn a really good profit because people are just playing way way too many hands, and it'll be profitable to have a fairly tight range. On the top right, I think it's a close spot, depending on what Hoey does here, between limping behind and um, raising. Limping behind has the option or the benefits of letting the blinds in with a dominated spade suit. So we'll see this hand five way, and if I flop a flush or some sort of nut flush draw, it's a lot more likely I can flush someone and win a bigger pot on later streets. So um, that's the main reason I think limping behind that type of hand is pretty good. Tarbet's 25% about here, a little bit less, and I think just easy flat with um, top pair, uh, turn two pair, or yeah, two pair here, but not super excited about it. If he was semi bluffing with clubs he got there, if he had a two, I mean he might play it like this as well. So I mean, even though we did improve, I think it's still a fold. He bet into one, two, three, four, three other players, and then double barreled into a player. Like I don't need to be that strong there because he only uh, min bet the flop, but I think we're just crushed there with four outs usually, so can't justify a call. Um, okay, I get three bet and probably not in great shape against his range, but we need 33%, and I doubt our hand has less than 36% here. So get a little bit of overlay, and he's jamming any flops. So when we do improve like we did, we can continue and make perfect decisions against him post flop and get it in pretty good here. On these types of board textures, the lockdown type boards, like on the top left, whether I have it or don't have it, I'm just gonna bet half pot here. I'm gonna want to be betting these types of boards very frequently, so it gives us a good price. And if people are playing fit or fold, this is the best pot size or bet size I think at these stakes. And the board texture improves, but I mean, if he did have another 5x type hand, we picked him outs against it with the clubs. If he raises here, I think it's a pretty easy fold. Even though we do have a five, I just don't think he's going to be raising without a boat at these stakes. So again, I think people are going to be playing their ranges like face up, so don't need to make any hero plays against them. Okay, so raised on the bottom left and picked up top pair with nothing to go with it, no backdoors. Um, into three other players. This is the type of board texture I think it's just too textured, and they're gonna have like a 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 jack type hand, or 8, 4, queen eight, or um, kings with diamonds, jacks with diamonds, and then I mean not gonna get enough folds and not gonna improve enough on the turn. So I think just check back and kind of give up. Now that we picked up top two, if it gets checked to us again, people are going to play their ranges just face up, and I don't think people are going to be looking to check raise the Jack Nine type hand here. So easy bet on the turn, and if we do get raised, again, just an easy fold. Top right, I think it's a good limp behind hand. No need to isolate. Kind of want to play for our set value and nut flush value again. Get it multi-way. It will be four-way here, and with the nut suit, it's going to be profitable to let someone in with a lower dominated suit. I'm not sure if Hui Rourke is a reg or not. He's on two of our tables and plays pretty aggressively, but he doesn't um, like auto reload, and I wasn't sure throughout the session. We'll play a few hands against him. Definitely want to take a lot of pots in position. So even a hand like the one I have on the bottom right, which isn't that strong and doesn't have a nut suit, um, our position will make up for a lot of that, and I think we'll be making pretty good decisions here. So go ahead and limp in and see another multi-way pot. I expect people to lead in a limp pot with most of their strongest hands. So any sets they might have, any straights, any like pair plus good flush draws. So protect my hand a little bit, and potentially, probably unlikely, bluff out some hands that have decent equity against us. So I think it's a pretty easy bet there in position if people check to it. So yeah, we're not going to be looking to do for no limit players that are watching this and trying to learn how to play the game. We're not going to do a lot of the things against limpers that you would normally do in no limit. Like let's say a weak player limps early position, and we would just isolate raise a ton when we're in late position and see bet any flop. This game's more about equities than fold equities, so um, if we have a hand that we want to limp behind and get a multi-way, we do have that option too. We don't need to just raise and uh, see bet every flop like a no limit strategy. Uh, Close fold on the top right. I had Queen 7 7 9 double suited against a cutoff open. The hand looks okay, but I mean, I think it's pretty close there. We could probably call it and get one of the blinds to call, play multiple in position, but the hand isn't that strong, and I'm not that sad about the fold. Top left, it's a limp pot, four solid flop, and flop bottom set, so pretty easy to lead. These are the types of boards where if someone raises us, we don't want to just start mashing the pot button and getting excited and getting our bottom set in, because we'll usually be looking at a set of jacks or a set of eights, and at best 9 10 queen, I'd say, which has a lot of equity against us. So if someone raises us there, I think it's just an easy call and not get it in. I guess occasionally people might overplay Jack 8, but more likely than not, I think we're crushed or flipping. So um, definitely want to limit the amount of money we put in on the flop. Even though our we have the third best possible hand, um, we're not going to get it in that good that often. So don't overvalue bottom set there in a limp pot. Okay, so on the bottom left, I made a C bet on a lockdown board where, not many hands have outs against Queen 10 that aren't a set. So, I mean, just easy C bet. And once I get called, it's definitely a board I think I just give up on for the most part. Board pairing turns are good to bet a lot of the time, but not in this particular case. Mainly because um, if he didn't have Queen 10, which I think most people just raise on the flop, the types of hands he's calling this board with are like King Queen 9x, King Jack 10, any King Jack combo. So the only hand we're looking to fold out is like a Jack Queen 9, I'd say. So there's like a limited range that we're trying to fold out on the turn. Um, so I think it's just to give up because that improves his range way, way too much. So I think it's not going to be a profitable spot to go ahead and bet. At this point, I think he's probably betting most of his King X combos on the turn. Um, Unlikely to have straight. So I mean, I could have bet maybe 425 there to try to fold out Jack X. It would have been semi reasonable, but again, I just decided to give up. I think he has maybe a naked king like a Ace King XX a fair amount as well. He pots it, so I think we're looking at a boat most of the time where he's looking to check back turn and raise us on the river. Even though it doesn't make that much sense, and I used to call there a lot, like I'd be okay. He's probably betting his King Jack on the turn, so it's unlikely for him to have it every time I called there, or every time I led. Let's just say for value, let's say I had nines full or something, and they raised, and I called. I was always looking at the nuts. So I mean, it's unlike it looks like a spot where he's being tricky and unlikely has it, but whenever they take that tricky line, they basically always have it. Okay, so these type of hands are better to isolate with um, than to limp behind and try to get multi-way. Our suit isn't that good. Our overall hand isn't going to be that good multi-way. If we get it three, four-handed, our hand needs to make like strong hands, and this one just won't. So much better to raise. Hopefully, get the blinds to fold and play it heads up, where our suit cleans up a little bit, and um, it'll play a little bit better heads up. And flop bottom pair with no backdoor draws, or I guess one backdoor straight draw, but not a good one. And I think easy spot just c bet and hopefully get him to, or hopefully get him to fold. So he's unlikely to have top set there, or even like an ace jack type hand. I think most of the Broadway type hands he's playing are going to be raising, so don't need to bet all that big. Just bet 225 into $5 and have exploitable bet sizing tells. But against weak players, it's just not going to matter. So don't need to over exert ourselves and risk more than we need to. Okay, so with the top left hand, I think it's easy isolation play and just raise for value. Our hand is probably in the top 10 or 12% of hands, so definitely want to get a little bit of money in. And we do get three bet. At 50 PLO, what I've noticed is most people's three betting ranges are like ace ace XX still. So I mean, this guy may not have just a three betting range like that, but for the most part, I think it's kind of still like that at 50 PLO, where they're not three betting a wider range. We just call here. Our hand is certainly strong enough. Don't want to get it in for sure, because if we raise and someone gets it in, they have aces like always, and not a good flop for us. If you see bets here, I think it's just a pretty easy fold. His range is going to be aces heavy, and I mean, even if he just has a single ace, um, certainly a spot where we're just crushed way too often and don't want to make any sort of hero plays. He checks behind, so it really diminishes the aces combos in his range. But I mean, it's a fairly dry board, and he could be again slow playing, trying to get a bet out of us on the turn and possibly reverse. So I mean, can't 100% exclude it. If he checks behind again, I'd say it's unlikely he had aces. And we river probably the best hand because we know we have the nut jack here because Again, we expect him to put any sort of money in with aces or ace jack on either the flop or turn, so it'd be, I think, highly unlikely that we were beating the spot. So pretty easy bet for value. Hopefully, he just had a single ace that he's spot controlling. Um, Hopefully, he has a worse jack, like some sort of rundown, like a jack 10 9 8 that he bet and you can call with. I bet small here, mainly just like if I expected his range to be air or jack X, then obviously we want to bet bigger because the air is not calling any and the jack will call up to any amount. But I really wanted to target the lone aces in range and hopefully get him to call with those hands. So small bet size, just hopefully he'll hero call us here. And he folds. It's good spot to take a note on him, and I mean he obviously had air there to say three bets in position and checks down with air on ace jack three board, which will be very very relevant for us in future pots if we do play. He does have position on us, so if he does bet in the future after three betting, we'd think his range was a lot stronger than most people that just see bet anytime they three bet. Okay, so I flat and we get it three way flop. Flop the nuts here. Pretty easy, just bet, and if he bets, we have a decision. I think it's a lot better just to call here. Our hand isn't really vulnerable. Like usually people just have two outs. I mean, possibly he has 9x with like overcards, but that's the only hand that has any type of outs against us. But if he is betting a hand like 10 jack, 7, 7 6 5 or clubs or air or something like that, we kind of want him to improve to like his flush or straight draw. If we raise right now, all of those hands are folding. So uh, if we raise at 50 PLO, or people aren't going to be playing back or calling down light, for the most part, we're just hoping to cooler him to get the money in. So I think it's a better spot just to call and let him improve, and possibly let LGBZ in with some sort of draw. Okay, so good card for us. We have second nuts now, but I mean, very unlikely he has queen queen. And hopefully we did let him get there with like some sort of 10 jack type hand or um, a flush, in which case he can call us. And he calls, fairly quickly. So I think he has 9x or a flush a majority of the time. And um, I was thinking about bet size. I didn't want to bet too big here because wasn't sure if he'd call. We can't have air for the most part when we call flop and bet turn. So just bet 2/3 pot here. Hopefully he has like a nut flush or something like that and folds very quickly. So not sure what he had. Maybe he had just like kings or aces that was hoping to get to showdown or some sort of weak flush. So when you do start playing PLO, and if you do start at 50 PLO, it's a good stake to start at because I think everyone plays their hands, for the most part, if they're not playing awful, plays their hands straightforward, and it'll help you like hand read. People aren't going to be too tricky, and basic hand reading it'll be a good start for you if you do start playing PLO. It's one of the more difficult things to learn, I think. When I first started playing PLO, I'm one to hero call quite a bit, no limit, and I was making just the worst possible calls over and over on the river because I was just so used to it with like two pair, which is equivalent to like a weak pair no limit where people are nuts or nothing. But at 50 PLO, when people are betting the river, they usually have something, right? So if they have any pair, they're like, okay, I'm just gonna get this showdown. They don't bluff with those type hands. even though they probably should be. If people aren't turning any sort of made hand into a bluff, and they're usually going to have some sort of at least some sort of weak made hand. Um, People aren't going to be bluffing the river very often. So after I figured that out, things got a little bit smoother. So flopped an okay but not great wrap. With clubs out, we don't want to overvalue here. Like our hand isn't going to be doing that great against any flush draw type hand. In is just dominated by a Jack 10 9 8 type hand. So don't want to get too much money here. We're just gonna flat, and if it gets raised behind us, I think it's a pretty easy fold because even though we do have a wrap, it's just not doing great against some of the hands that want to get a ton of money in here. It's like a best case scenario. We get it in against queens and are still an underdog, or we get it in against the same wrap with the flush draw or a higher wrap with a pair, in which case we're just not doing great at all. Um, Okay, I turn the nuts on the bottom left. That guy's basically all in. So um, a decision here: do we want to raise? And if we do raise, I think Wow You're Bad plays decently against us on the river. So let's say we make it 30, and Wow You're Bad calls. Like any club will be bad. Any board pairing card, and even a 9 or 10 hit the river, and we no longer have the nuts, so it's kind of difficult to play. Plus, we get Why You're Bad to. Excuse me, let me get a drink of water really quick. Plus, we get Why You're Bad to overcall there with um, we're straight, so our hand that only has 4 outs against us, like a Queen 7, 8 7 6 5 type hand. So there's benefit in that, and we are fairly deceptive. So if we just flat here and he has 6 4, he might raise to try to get us out of the pot without thinking we wouldn't flat with the nuts. So I decided to flat here just to get While You're Bad to play and play rivers. I think better and more comfortably. On the top left, a player with slightly more than half stack opens and suck this out flats. Our hand is extremely, extremely strong here. Double suited kings with the queen 10 is, top 5% of hands for sure. So certainly want to re-raise and get some money in. And we get 4 bet, not thrilled about it. Usually looking at aces, but I mean, if he happens to have like a Jack 10 9 7, we have that hand crushed. Um, so I mean, not excited, but definitely getting it in. And he does have double suited aces with one of our suits covered, so wasn't in great shape against that hand, but I think against the range we're fine. While You're Bad does go ahead and raise with the same hand as us, so um, we're chopping. What I noticed as well is a lot of the players, and you'll want to identify them. I wasn't playing with a HUD or anything, but a lot of the players just play too many pots, and when they have a strong enough hand to go with, they just pot it. So they're basically saying, I'm all in no matter what. Um, Really important to identify those players. So on the bottom right there was a limp pot, and Tariq just pot it. Occasionally, some players just whatever hand they have and they pot, they're basically going to call any raise and call any blank turn. So identifying players that just once they have a certain bet size and they're going to go with it is going to be extremely profitable. Um, Easy C bet, I think, on the bottom right with the nut gut shot and nut flush draw, and just double barrel the turn there, and hopefully get him to fold or bink the river. Um, Flop second and flush on the top left, and obviously we're going to bet that. And this is the type of board that we're just going to be betting a ton into two players without a flush or a set. Most people fold or without ace 10. So, um, in my opinion, just want to bet, I think, our entire range there. Board pairs on the turn, and uh, it's not a great card for us because if he had a set or ace 10, we're beat. But given that do have the 10 blocker, I think we can still bet for value there because it's a lot less likely he has a boat, and we do make a boat in the river. And again, I think pretty easy bet for value and reevaluate if he raises. He bets here, and this is actually fairly interesting. He bet 1/3 pot. Do you want to raise here and hopefully get him to call with 10-8 or a king high flush? Um, or do we just flat with our boat? Our boat's not that great, right? Like he might have queen 10, which we're chopping with, and he's definitely never folding. So it doesn't matter what we do with that hand. If he has ace 10, or somehow has aces, then that's not good as well. Although I think it's discounted. If people have ace 10 or ace x or aces here, I think they usually pot it and try to get like flushes and worse boats to call, or go for check raise. So I think those hands are a little bit discounted. But is there much value in raising? Like if we raise here, like we've bet twice and raised, it's very credible for us to have like a boat. So I think it's not super likely he calls with a king high flush, and he probably calls with 8-10. But I mean, he might check call with those hands as well. So I mean, I think it's fairly thin. Flatting's a little bit nitty, but I think it's okay. I don't remember what I did here exactly. Um, I think it's pretty close between a small raise. We don't want to like pot it here or anything because he's definitely not going to call with too many hands that are worse than ours. So if we do raise, I think it's going to be a small one for value, like it's under 15, I imagine, and or we're flatting here. We definitely don't want to pot it because then only hands that beat us continue or chop with us continue. And he does call and was beat. So I think small raise size there was best. And I think I looked at what he had. Okay, he had a jack high flush with the ace queen blocker. So he played it. He played to block bet. And once I made a small raise, I guess he talked himself into calling. Like I'm never bluffing like that. So I mean, um, I think it's a pretty easy fold with jack high flush or even the king high flush, in my opinion. But um, the ace queen blocker does help him because it makes it slightly less likely that we do have a boat ourselves. So well, I don't think it was a great call, but it's can't be that bad with those pot odds. I went ahead and folded with ace king 10-6 with king high suit there. Um, Occasionally you can call, I think, at slightly higher stakes where people have wider three betting ranges, but at 50 PLO again, I think people are going to be extremely straightforward. So he's going to have like um, ace ace XX and strong kings there, and our hand does very very poorly against that range of hands. So I think we can fold to three bets. When I first started playing, I just never folded to three bets, but certainly have been looking into it a lot more as of late. So there isn't, well, there's enough footage, but not enough for a second video. So unless I make another video, this might be just the end of part one of the series for 50 PLO, and I don't think I need to get like too much more into it. Um, because I mean it's fairly basic, and this is a general strategy and how I'd play it, and hopefully just move on to the higher stakes. So I'll go 100 next, and maybe make two videos there, then three at 200, and maybe four at 400, where we'll get into a lot more interesting spots. Unless you guys want more of the small stakes videos, just let me know. Okay, so Brazil champ min races us here. So I think we're looking at 4x usually, occasionally some air because we're betting these boards a lot, and fours full of nines or nines full. Hopefully he doesn't have nine full because we have two outs, only have two outs against that hand, and don't want to overplay here because occasionally we get it up against a worse four, but um, in those cases, I mean, we're stacking him anyway on any turn, so that's not super relevant. So if he does have air or a worse four, I think he's just going to bet on the turn anyway, and we make money like that. And we could potentially get away from the hand if we suspect he's strong on later streets, so I think flatting there is certainly best. Five's not a great card for us, mainly because he called the preflop raise, so if he did have a four, it's more likely to be connected for like a 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 3, 4, 5 type hand. So I mean, the five isn't particularly a wonderful card for us, but he pots it, and I don't think he'd be potting with nines full or any boat here. Although I've said that against weaker players in the past in my mind when I've been playing, they certainly had nines full, didn't played it exactly like that. So can't totally discredit those hands, but I think more likely than not he just has a lone four here when he pots it and he's trying to like protect. So I decided to go with my hand with the nut four here, and he did have just a lone four, so we're in good shape against that hand. Just need to dodge a nine outer here, and cannot do it. Always feel semi good when I run a little bad at much smaller stakes than I play. Hopefully get it out of the way. Alright, I decided to just bet in position here when three people checking a limp pot again. Just want to stab here a ton in these spots and hopefully get them taken down. I think people lead for the most part anytime they have a monster draw or king nine or something like that. In addition to that, we have good turn cards for us. Ace is decent. That's three outs. A five is good. That's five outs to improve, and any spade there. So we have 14 outs to improve and barrel on the turn. A queen's decent too, so that might be another three outs that we're pretty comfortable with on the turn. So it's an okay spot to bet and have our equity improve quite a bit on the turn, at least 1/3 of the time. And that's not one of our 14 to 17 outs. He does, however, just check to us in this spot, so I think it's a good spot to just bet and rep the 7-8. If he just flats here, it's a good spot to continue barreling, like to get him to fold like a king 5, 5-9, 5-6 type hand by the river. When we do fire all three barrels, if he does just call here, I think usually he doesn't have 7-8, so it's a good through barreling opportunity for us on blank rivers. Hand isn't like spectacular from the small blind against early position open, but I think it's okay. with the 10-9-8 that's connected and double suited. We do get ourselves into a fair amount of trouble against higher flush draws and stuff, but hopefully that doesn't happen to us and we can get away from some hands. And on a 3-3-5 or flush draw board, I just lead. Again, going to want to stab at a lot of these boards, even not as the preflop raiser. 34 as the preflop raiser has to face a player behind, so he's going to have to play fairly straightforward if he doesn't have an overpair, a 3 or flush draw. So, I mean, get him to fold a bunch there, and people just fold if they have air there, and they usually have air. So I like to stab when I'm playing lower. At stakes where people won't play back. At higher stakes, people are going to float you there or raise you there quite a bit, and you can't as liberally just bet those boards all the time. Five high flush draw, some back doors. Okay spot to check back and not lose your equity, or just bet. And if you do bet, you find out that you're facing a set, king 10 or a higher flush draw. So I mean, not great equity with a 5 high flush draw anyway. So I mean, okay spot. I'd more likely check back like a jack high flush or naked queen high flush. And I guess I'll wrap up this video. So again, if you guys want to see more at the smaller stakes, or just have me hurry up and get to um, the mid stakes, let me know, and I will do that. It doesn't matter to me too much because I don't have the footage for those videos yet. And also any particular topics. Also, um, I've already gotten some emails about the whole cards revealed series, and certainly gonna work that out. I've been semi-lazy as of late, and sorry about that. But if there's any particular topics you want to talk about in PLO, I'll certainly try to address them in future videos as well. So hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Don Wynn from BlueFirePoker.com.